There are so many other sectors, climate, sustainability, youth, digital safety, health, religious tolerance, and so on and so on. It's very important for us just to identify civil societies who are active on this space and get them to be connected with fellow ASEAN civil society organizations. So that's the methodology of what we're trying to do, to connect the people. I think people-centered ASEAN means at least three things. Okay. One is whatever decisions ASEAN make as an organization, it has to benefit the people, right? So that's one. Yeah. Secondly, the ASEAN peoples must be engaged in ASEAN programs. So we can't have ASEAN activities where the people are marginalized, right? So they have to be a big part of the ASEAN program. I really believe, guys, that we cannot have a global role unless it is based on ASEAN. So for us, for me, it's a fantasy if we go all over the place, yet we don't take care of the region, right? We have to take care of the region first, and that is the basis for us to play a global role.
Halo pemirsa, Anda menyaksikan International Corner bersama saya Gracia Simanjuntak. Dengan saya kali ini, pendiri sekaligus ketua sebuah komunitas yang giat memasyarakatkan politik luar negeri dan menyebarkan semangat internasionalisme di tanah air. Foreign Policy Community Indonesia, Bapak Dino Patti Djalal. How are you, Pak Dino?
Baik, terima kasih. Gracias.
Thank you so much for taking the time with us. Let's start our discussion by discussing FPCI and its new forum. FPCI, as a non-political and independent foreign policy organization, is launching a new forum called AFPC, the ASEAN for the People's Conference. Now, what is FPC and what is the driving factor that led to the forum?
Well, it starts with the evolution of ASEAN to become a people-centered community. So they made this decision about 10 years ago that ASEAN is not enough just to be close or solid at the top. At the bottom, it has to be solid as well. The people are connected and have mutual trust. So that's the idea of people-centered community. And the idea of this ASEAN for the People's Conference is to connect the civil societies and NGOs from all ASEAN countries in a large forum where they can have discussions and where they can exhibit what they're doing to be seen by the general public. So it's really it's the summit of civil society groups in ASEAN. Okay.
So it's fair to say that AFPC seeks to establish a connection between ASEAN as an institution and the grassroots.
Focusing especially on the grassroots, because ASEAN is already doing very well at the top among the leaders, the ministers, and the officials. But the peoples of ASEAN, the civil societies, they haven't been connected as well. And this is the purpose of the AFPC.
And ASEAN envisions itself as a people-centered and people-oriented organization. However, most of its activities still follow a, like you said, top-down approach and rarely reach the grassroots level. Now, how does AFPC aim to implement a bottom-up approach within the existing top-down structure of ASEAN?
Well, the key, I think, is to get civil society organizations from across sectors to come together and meet one another. And this is something that we find has not been successful in ASEAN. I mean, one example is I was a I was the chair of Indonesian Lecturers
Yeah.
Association, Indonesian University Lecturers. We had tens and thousands of members in Indonesia, but I never had any dealing with my peer in Malaysia or the Philippines, right? I
ASEAN
was
states.
just busy with our own thing in Indonesia.
National, yeah.
So that's why, and that's just on education. There are so many other sectors, climate, sustainability, youth, digital safety, health, religious tolerance, and so on and so on. And it's very important for us just to identify civil societies who are active on the space and get them to be connected with fellow ASEAN civil society organizations. So that's the methodology of what we're trying to do to connect the peoples. Because when you ask who's the peoples, in a lot of countries the peoples are represented by civil society organizations. Yeah.
Perhaps even a simple question like, what are the benefits of ASEAN for Indonesia may not be clearly answered, yeah, by
Yes.
the general public.
Yes, that, well, very true. I mean, if you ask an average ASEAN citizen which foreign powers are most relevant for the region,
Yeah.
Many of them would say either China or the US, right? Few would say it's ASEAN,
Yeah.
right? So I think the people need to understand that the most important regional organization for them and the one that matters most to their future stability and security and well-being is ASEAN.
So that's the mission. What strategies is FPCI adopting to ensure that FPC can serve as a bridge for civil society engagement in ASEAN policymaking processes?
Well, we are going to facilitate a dialogue between ASEAN leaders that we will invite to the FPC and the civil society groups that will take part. I know this is not the first time that's been done, but certainly we will use this occasion for the CSOs to give their aspirations, inputs, and concerns to the ASEAN leaders who will be present at the AFPC. Yeah. So,
what are the issues then? The most pressing issues that would be addressed at this conference, Dino?
There's not a single issue, but we identify around 15 to 18 issues that we think are relevant to any ASEAN societies, right? So definitely education, definitely technology and AI, climate, responsibility, sustainability. There's issues about religious tolerance, food security, anti-corruption. That's going to be very popular. Good governance.
Within the
youth and arts and culture. And a few others. Yeah. So those are the ones that I remember at the top of my head now. Yeah.
Certainly there are differences in priorities, right, within the ASEAN countries. Okay, Dino, we will continue this discussion in the second segment with the topic of civil society participation in ASEAN.
Thank you. Yes.
Pemirsa, di segmen berikutnya kita akan memperbincangkan partisipasi masyarakat di ASEAN. Anda kembali menyaksikan International Corner bersama pendiri sekaligus Ketua Foreign Policy Committee di Indonesia, Bapak Dino Patti Djalal. Pak Dino, as someone actively involved in public diplomacy, how do you interpret a people-centered and people-oriented ASEAN?
I think people-centered ASEAN means at least three things.
Okay.
One is whatever decisions ASEAN make as an organization, it has to benefit the people, right? So that's one.
Yeah.
Secondly, the ASEAN peoples must be engaged in ASEAN programs So we can't have ASEAN activities where the people are marginalized, right? So they have to be, a big part of the ASEAN programs.
Yeah.
And third, there must be strong people-to-people connectivity among students, among business people, among researchers, and so on. There must be strong people-to-people connections and possible even collaborations. So I think those three things at least form the basis of the people-centered ASEAN.
Then, to what extent has the ASEAN Vision or ASEAN Community Vision 2025 been realized at the community or grassroots level?
Well, they have the metrics, yeah. So ASEAN community has three pillars, and the first pillar is political security, and then the second one is economic, third one is socio-cultural. So the last program of action was about 10 years, 2015 to 2025. And ASEAN has done a metrics of how many of the action plans are actually done for each of the pillars, right? But in my view, the socio-cultural pillar of ASEAN remains very much problematic.
Oh.
Yeah, because as we can see, a large number of ASEAN citizens still are not familiar with ASEAN and still have not embraced the ASEAN identity as yet, right?
Yeah.
So it remains a work in progress. I think the next phase of plan of action, which is 2025 to 2045, we really need to take hard lessons. Why is it so difficult to bring ASEAN to the grassroots, and for the ASEAN citizens to embrace the so-called ASEAN identity, right?
Moving on, do you see enough or sufficient political will among the ASEAN member states to open more space for civil society participation?
It's a very good question. I think we need to scratch deeper on that issue, yeah, because at the conceptual level, yes, people-centered ASEAN, yeah. But different ASEAN governments have different interactions with civil societies. So the way civil societies in Indonesia, for example, function and interact with government is different from Vietnam, because the political system is different. Different from Laos also, because political system is different, and also different from Brunei, for example. Right. So an ASEAN strategy to advance a people-centered community has to take into account the differences in the people landscape in Southeast Asia, right? And to be honest, for us too, is a learning process. We've been calling a lot of civil society groups throughout Southeast Asia, and we find out that it's not that easy.
How challenging are those differences, sir?
Oh, it's very challenging. A lot of them, for example, when we ask them, have you embraced ASEAN identity? And they say, okay, what does that mean? Right? And it's a good question. What does that mean that you have an ASEAN identity, right? Many of them do not know that there's an ASEAN anthem, for example. Many of them don't understand that there's a ASEAN, a flag. You ask them, what does it look like? They say, I don't know, right? Even the logo, are you familiar with ASEAN logo? Well, not really. So really, we need a very aggressive campaign to just educate the people about ASEAN. It's not just a nice word, it's something that is making our region stable and making all the countries in the region live in peace with one another.
We don't even see enough ASEAN logos,
Yeah.
In the cities. Okay. Lastly, how do you see the importance of communities in maintaining peace and collaboration in the region, sir?
Well, I think ASEAN community is extremely important because it signifies how much our region has changed. Southeast Asia used to be a very divided region, full of conflicts, full of wars, full of ideological confrontations, and it was just one of the trouble spots of the world. But now ASEAN is, as you said earlier, is one of the is an oasis of peace and stability and cooperation. And compare this to the Middle East, compare this to Europe, where there's a war actually going on, and so on. And Africa, there's still wars and conflicts there also. ASEAN is relatively peaceful and stable. And why? Because all of the countries in the region have a common stake in in making the community, the notion of ASEAN community work out for them.
But this is the end of our segment. We will be back in the second segment, third segment.
Okay.
Pemirsa, di segmen berikutnya atau segmen terakhir kita akan perbincangkan tentang Indonesia dan konektivitas ASEAN. International Corner kembali bersama pendiri sekaligus Ketua Foreign Policy Community Indonesia, Bapak Dino Patti Djalal. Pak Dino, for this last segment, let's talk about Indonesia and ASEAN people connectivity. How do you assess Indonesia's contribution in promoting a people-centered ASEAN?
Well, Indonesia is the largest country in ASEAN by geography, by population, by economy. So I think Indonesia is a very strategic driver of a people-centered ASEAN. And we are an open society, we are a democracy, which means we welcome anyone who wants to come in and to Indonesia, to collaborate with us. And vice versa, we send a lot of our students to Singapore and Malaysia, Philippines also, there's some in Thailand and so on. But Indonesia was a country that really pushed hard for the ASEAN Charter, especially on the part about democracy and human rights, right? Back then, there was a lot of debate on what should be the content of ASEAN Charter, and democracy and human rights was not so strongly featured in the document. But Indonesia pushed hard for it. Because despite all the different political systems, ASEAN countries must be open and caring societies that gives room for transparency, rule of law, and human rights, attention to human security, and so on. So Indonesia has played a very strong role conceptually and strategically in pushing for the idea of people-centered ASEAN.
Now, how is Indonesia leveraging its position as the largest country in ASEAN to enhance public participation and drive civil society connectivity across the region?
Well, that's the difficult part, very difficult, because obviously the government cannot fund all these activities. A lot of it is just left to civil societies to take on their initiatives, right? But I think there's a lot that can be done because, for example, the number of ASEAN students in Indonesian universities is still very, very minimal, right? I mean, you go to UI or UGM or any universities and count how many students from ASEAN countries are studying there, right? Very, very small number, right? And also, this is not just for Indonesia. A lot of them go to Singapore and Malaysia, to study, but very few go to Vietnam, for example. Very few go to Laos, and still very few go to the Philippines as well, right? So just on educational exchanges is quite uneven, right? So I think there's a lot that can be done to open the gates and to incentivize people to just interact with one another. I remember I was in Hanoi recently,
Vietnam.
And out of nowhere, a Vietnamese just tapped me in the back and said, "Hey, are you Indonesian?" And I said yes. And then he started talking in Bahasa Indonesia with me. He's Vietnamese. I said, how did you learn? Oh, I studied in Indonesia. Me and a whole bunch of Vietnamese. And then from there, we went back, and now we do coffee. We open up a cafe, and we sell Indonesian coffee and so on. But that's a wonderful example of people-to-people exchange, right? And that we need to scale up, obviously.
Amid the current geopolitical dynamics, or what strategies could the Indonesian government adopt to maximize the ASEAN people connectivity concept in strengthening both national and regional economic resilience?
Yeah, I think what is important, first, the most important thing now is trust and confidence. Because if you look at the geopolitical turmoil that we see around the world, it is indicated by the absence of trust and confidence, right? But in Southeast Asia, trust is still high, right? Confidence is still high among countries in the region, except Thailand and Cambodia, which recently just had a problem.
It was based on trust then?
Yes. So to answer your question, in terms of people to people, what is important is to maintain this trust at the people to people level, right? Because people to people level can develop anger and resentment, right? And happens a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes just small things can lead to people to people resentment, even football match, right?
Yeah,
and
true,
so on.
True.
So I think what is important in a time of geopolitical tensions around the world, ASEAN governments must maintain their trust and their ability to work out their problems, which they did during the Thai-Cambodia conflict. Immediately there was a ceasefire after 2 weeks, which is very fast.
Yeah.
And at the same time, at the people-to-people level, that trust must also be harnessed as well.
Lastly, sir, how can Indonesia maintain a balance between its involvement in emerging global power structures and its commitment to a dynamic and people-centered ASEAN?
Well, I really believe, guys, that we cannot have a global role unless it is based on ASEAN. So for us, for me, it's a fantasy if we go all over the place, yet we don't take care of the region, right? We have to take care of the region first, and that is the basis for us to play a global role, right? Because Indonesia alone, when we go to, I don't know, G20 or whatever, okay, we are attractive. But if we go to these places saying, hey, I also bring ASEAN with me, which is the whole region and 10 countries, our credibility and our influence is a lot more. So whatever we do at the UN, at the G20 or everywhere, we must make sure that our first base, which is ASEAN, is well covered by us, right? So that's President Prabowo understands that, that he needs to have a synergy between our regional foreign policy and also our global engagement, because the two are really they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. So there was a time, remember, that we were very active globally, but there was nothing regionally. Right? Remember, there was non-aligned movement.
Yes.
We formed a non-aligned movement. Right? But in the region, there was nothing. There was no ASEAN back then. There was something called SEATO, Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, but it was very militaristic. It was very, it was siding with one of the blocks, and so on. Which means what? The region was just not whole. It was not solid. Right, it was divided, right?
But how did it happen, sir? What was missing there?
We were more active globally than on regional affairs, and in fact, on regional affairs, we pick fights with our neighbors. Remember, we had confrontasi with Malaysia. We had confrontasi with Singapore. Malaysia had problem with the Philippines over Sabah. Right. So the region was a big mess. Right, and which means what? Indonesia was active globally, but the region was a big mess. Right, and I think the lesson is we have to take care of both. We have to take care of the region, make sure we are coherent. There's ASEAN centrality. We resolve issues in our region, led by countries in the region, and we are also active globally. Right, but there must be always a sync between the regional and the global.
Hand in hand.
Engagement,
How optimistic are you, sir?
I'm always optimistic. I mean, it's hard to get up in the morning and do a good job if you're not optimistic, right? So there are enough cynical people out there, and I always tell my kids, if you are cynical, you never get anything done, right?
Yeah,
I
true.
don't know any successful people who are cynical. I haven't met one all my life. All successful people are those with positive mindset, right? In looking at the world and in looking at their own, their own personal potentials. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Pak Dino, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you, Gracia. Yeah.
And best wishes for a successful conference.
I hope to see you
this
there.
coming September.
Oh, before I should say,
Please.
if any civil societies in Indonesia, if you think that you've done good things for society or for the region, and you want to show off your what you do, please register for this ASEAN for the People's program, and the
FPCI.
address is www.aseanforthepeoplesconference.org.
Okay.
Yes,
Great.
and then it's you can we will provide you with a booth. You can show off your cause, your activities to the public, and you can connect with all these other civil societies from ASEAN and connect with ASEAN leaders. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Pemirsa, demikian perbincangan saya dengan pendiri sekaligus Ketua Foreign Policy Community Indonesia, Bapak Dino Patti Djalal. Sampai jumpa di episode berikutnya. Thank you so much, Pak Dino.
Thank you. Yeah.